disasters that we were calling natural, there was nothing natural about it. Each and every weather related disaster has a climate change footprint.
Climate justice means making sure the solutions are fair, the voices of the frontline communities are heard. The solutions should come from the people who have lived with the nature, not from the people who have spent their lives in AC rooms and in concrete walls.
I believe solution in the ground, solution in not in the COP conference or Dubai or the Washington. Truly, the local people are the real hero, and they are the most resilient.
What we need to do is let's not lose hope despite the doom and gloom scenario. We need to draw inspiration from the community and also shoulder the responsibility of working with them and taking their issues to various levels.
It's very important we go back to our roots, go back to our indigenous communities, learn from them, get inspiration from them, and they have the key to our survival.
Maya, and today I'm going to be the host for the webinar. So to begin with, I would like to mention what Reality Beyond Dreams is and who we are. So it's an impact production team creating films and campaigns that spark social change. We use storytelling to inspire conversation, shift perspective, and drive action. We are based in Pakistan and UAE. However, we are working with communities worldwide. We work on important issues and important topics like climate change, um, uh, human rights, and gender equity. And then I want to discuss the webinar details with all of you. As we all know, the title is South Asia's Climate Generation, Power, Protest, and Justice. So why South Asia? Because we all know that South Asia is the worst sufferer of climate crisis. And I would like to mention that we are the least contributors to climate crisis, yet we suffer the most. Every now and then we face floods, droughts, and there are natural disaster happening every year. But we have some amazing leaders and change makers who are bringing grassroots changes. That's why the theme for today's webinar is grassroots climate action by and from the most affected communities in South Asia. And the purpose is to spotlight intergeneration leaders from the most impacted communities driving grassroots changes. And for that, we have some amazing speakers coming on board. I would like to thank all of you guys for sparing some time for us. We have Mr. Harjeet Singh from India, who is the founding director of Satat Sampada Climate Foundation and global convener of the Fill the Fun campaign for climate justice. He advises the fossil fuel non-proliferation theory and is a part of the UN's expert group on climate risk management. With over 30 years in climate advocacy, he has held leadership roles at ActionAid and Climate Action Network International. We have Mr. Sohanur Rahman from Bangladesh, who is the executive coordinator of YouthNet Global, who's a youth-led which is a youth-led organization working in 50 districts in Bangladesh, which promote climate justice, gender equality, and community resilience. He has represented Bangladesh at major international climate forums and was recognized in 2024 as a laureate of the Young Activist Summit at the United Nations in Geneva. Then we have Ms. Layla Kiran, who is the founder and CEO of Reality Beyond Dreams, where we produce impactful films and campaigns on climate change, innovation, entrepreneurship, sustainable business, and women's and children's rights. She's an award-winning filmmaker and artist. Yeah, we are these are some of the webinar agenda that we are going to follow. At first, we will go through the spark. We will know what shaped our panelists' climate journeys. Then tactics and impact, how they get results and face challenges. The future, our vision for climate justice and next steps. And then we will take some questions from the audience, and you can mute yourself at that time and ask any question you would like to ask. Yeah, that's it from me for the intro. Now I would like to give the floor to our panelists to introduce themselves a little bit and share their journey. Mr. Harjeet Singh, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me for this conversation. Sumaya, as you already mentioned, I am the founding director of the Sampada Climate Foundation, and I'm also the global convener of Fill the Fund campaign that we started this year. I can talk more about it later. And I'm also the strategic advisor to the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. So I'm doing a combination of things, but all oriented towards climate justice, and that's what we are fighting for. My journey also had 20 years of work with ActionAid, where I worked from the grassroots to the global policy level. And yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I got a chance to work with communities, and I'm also working with several governments and in the global policy arena, which is really required for us to deal with a global crisis like climate change. But there are multiple challenges that we face in terms of biodiversity crisis or the rising inequality that we see, and various kinds of pollution that have been created by the unsustainable model of development. So yeah, we're trying to make some effort to deal with those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harjeet. Can we have Sohanur on board? Is he there?
Yes. Thank you, Sumaya. And it's a great pleasure and honor to join with Harjeet Singh or Harjeet Ji in the same panel and Layla. So my name is Sohan from coastal Bangladesh. I'm from the Borishal coastal city, and I faced numbers of cyclone after 2007. So basically, I work with the grassroots young people, like young people, young women, and most marginalized people who are affected by the climate crisis, like floods, cyclones, salinity in different regions in Bangladesh. So my mission at YouthNet is empowering the grassroots to tackle the climate crisis. And truly, the local people are the real hero, and they are the most resilient, and they are the real solution maker. And I believe solution in the ground, solution in not in the COP conference or Dubai or the Washington, solution in the ground. So, but the grassroots participation is very limited to the global negotiation. So global leaders or negotiator, they are negotiating like our future generation, but we are not part of that negotiation. So we are working with the grassroots solution or grassroots action, but we are also active in national policy level to formulating the national climate strategies like national adaptation plan or NDC or other country climate strategy, and how young voice, grassroots voice can be fit with the policy making level. And we believe climate change is a global issue, so young people should be engaged in at all levels, from local to global policy making. So I started my journey since 2021 in Glasgow COP, but then I joining continuously. But our delegation, youth delegation, also getting double. So more young people from grassroots, they are joining the global climate negotiation. And currently, I address obviously local adaptation. Just transition is a new arena. How we can move from fossil fuel to renewable energy with the right dignity and the different kind of equity, as well as pollution. Like in Bangladesh, you're facing environmental pollution like lead pollution. So how the EV, electric vehicle, or the solar storage is a good solution, but it's poisoning millions children due to the lead. So I am also addressing that issue. Yeah. Thank you. Over to Sumaya.
Thank you so much, Sohanur, for your valuable insights. Can we have Layla next?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sumaya, and it's an honor to share this floor with Harjeet and Sohanur. It's I am just a newbie in this whole when it comes to my work, I wouldn't be really, I wouldn't say I have done a lot. There is a lot to be done, and the inspirations comes from the people who are already in the field. And I totally echo what you both are saying about the issues that we are facing in South Asian countries, and especially Sohanur, I totally agree. How the local communities are not part of the negotiations that are being done in the big uh, climate conferences or decision making. I was part of COP28, and when I saw all these mostly white men here in Dubai and discussing about climate change when they have no clue what climate change is, they haven't seen the grassroots reality, and they don't know what the locals are facing. So we definitely need to mobilize. We definitely need to bring the stories from the ground to the face front, and that's where I come in. I'm a filmmaker and storyteller, and through my work, I share the stories of communities who are living in the forefront, especially in Himalayas. And through my work, I document the stories of melting glaciers, the flood, the forced migrations, and how it affects the people and their mental health, while also highlighting their resilience and their solutions. Sohanur presented it beautifully that, we, the communities who are living with the nature, know how to coexist with the nature. So the solution should come from us because we have centuries of observation. So the solution should come from the people who have lived with the nature, not from the people who have spent their lives in AC rooms and in concrete walls. So I am the founder of Impact Studio, that Reality Beyond Dreams, is Sumaya said, and we create films to amplify marginalized voices and inspire action. And for me, storytelling is not just showing what is happening, but it's also about, moving people, sparking the conversation, and driving actual real change around these issues. So, yeah, over to you, Sumaya.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for sharing a bit of their journey. We can move forward with our panel discussion, where in the first section we will discuss the spark. I mean, where you guys will discuss what sparked your journey. I would like to start with Mr. Harjeet. You have worked on climate justice over 3 decades, as you have mentioned, and from grassroots disasters resilience to UN negotiations. I would like you to share what initially sparked your climate activism, or when did you started thinking that climate activism is the career you are going to go for?
Thank you. You are taking me back 30 years. Just to say that um, I come from a management background and I did my specialization in marketing. But while I was doing my master's, I got so much attracted towards the work in rural areas and working with communities. And I barely worked with the corporate sector for a month. And then I said, no, I'm going to go to the grassroots. So my very first project was a biodiversity project in the jungles of Gujarat. And that's when I spent time and I actually lived with communities, forest dwelling communities and indigenous people then. And then I got to work with people who were affected by Gujarat earthquake since I was there, and then I got into Action Aid, where I started again working with communities. And my work was much more involved in disaster response. And I could see how disasters such as cyclones and floods were increasing. And while working with communities, I could clearly see that one, there were some communities who were getting impacted all the time, and then how impacts were multiplying. And for me, the realization was that we need to go beyond the symptoms and impacts, and we need to start looking at the root cause of the problem. And disasters that we were calling natural, there was nothing natural about it. And that's when I started discovering the whole phenomenon of climate change, which was already becoming real. And we had to really go beyond distributing relief packages after a disaster, which is absolutely needed, but recognizing that we need to question and address the root of this cycle of who is causing the problem and why same people are getting impacted all the time, so that we understand and target and address the cause. And of course, at that moment, science was also evolving, and we were getting much more clear how disasters are being intensified by climate change. In fact, we can, and we, if you look at all the entire range of disasters, 90% of disasters are weather related. And now we can safely say that each and every weather related disaster has a climate change footprint. And the injustice, both why climate change is happening and who is getting impacted, cuts through. And that was the reason I got much more involved, from developmental work to disaster response to the hardcore climate justice fight, recognizing that you cannot address the challenges that people are facing on ground without going to the global level, without looking at those sources. So that's what pushed me or encouraged me to go for this global fight for climate justice.
That's really inspiring. And yeah, I agree. We need to know the root problems to address those issues. Now I would like to go to Sohanur, and we came to know that you are a survivor of Cedar cyclone in 2007, and you helped in mobilizing youth across 50 districts in Bangladesh, and you had the parliament to declare a climate emergency. Could you please take us back to that and share insights about it, Sohanur?
Yes, thank you, Sumayapa. And the climate justice movement also very personal to me, because I faced or hit by the super cyclone Cedar, and when I was reading in class 7, and that night was nightmare to me. That was a very sad night for me. And next morning, I found my community is devastated. Houses are closed, trees are out. And 2007 is not only last cyclone, but in my memories, it's the first super cyclone. But after 2007, we faced dozen cyclone. In 2009, super cyclone Ayla, then Moshin, Nargis, Amphan, Bulbul, Yash, Sitrang, Komen, Rono. So it's not just name. It's all are, disaster to the coastal people. And after the heat, coastal people start their life with zero. And I started my activism life with the child rights movement, to documenting child rights violation, like the child labor, like issue of the child marriage. And day by day, I found in Bangladesh, and I think it's not only Bangladesh, also Pakistan or India, child marriage is one of the common issue. And Bangladesh is globally ranked maybe third for the child marriage. And our half of the number of girls can't continue their, education or their life after that, their 18th birthday. Like by 16, by 14, so most of the girls are forced to marriage, to early marriage or child marriage. So I started my life with the child rights movement. Then I found the huge linkage between the climate disaster and the child marriage. Nowadays, people are blaming for the child marriage. It's for technology, like the mobile phone is very easy, internet is very easy, easy access. So normally community people are blaming mobile phone and the affection relation. So adolescents are getting more, interconnected, and they are forcing for marriage. But my observation is currently is one of the major problems still is poverty, and we call three do in Bangla. Do means one word in Bangla, not word, and later. So it's daridrota, poverty, durjog, disaster, and durgamata, distance, hard to reach. So these three factors are the main cause for the normally child marriage. And when I urge to the parents, don't force your daughter, they are asking, Sohanur, what the solution? We have no school. Our girls can't continue their education after 5th grade. They are just getting the 5th grade education in primary school. If we need higher education, we should send our daughters to another island, to another riverbed. So we need money to pay the cost of the fare of the boat. So we can't pay the money. So we have no schools. So in the community, no service for the family or the other things. So when girls should be in class 6, but that time they already married and by pregnant, and I found some cases that the mother and the unborn baby both are died due to the distance and due to the lack of the family care or the reproductive care. So and those and who are the most are suffering from the last mile, who are living in the middle of the Bay of Bengal, like the Undershore or the Rangabali, but they are not responsible for climate crisis, who is the Harjeet mentioned, because they are not using air condition, they are not using refrigeration, they can't consume meat, they can consume meat yearly, but normally we can consume meat in every week, but they can't. So they are not responsible. Their carbon footprint is nil, but they are paying highest price. They are bearing the burn. So that time I visited a village in the middle of Bay of Bengal, and I found it's total injustice. And then I joined the climate justice movement in 2017 in my city, to mobilizing young people to claiming justice, because it's purely unjust, and the whole things we think is separate. But all, if you look, the root cause is the same: is the capitalism, is the colonialism, and the domination. Especially, Layla, you mentioned white men supremacy, and climate crisis purely a man-made crisis. But men are leading, but women is part of solution, but all responsibility goes to women. So household work, care work, collecting water, drinking water in Bangladesh coast or in Bangladesh, for climate issue, one of the major issue, drinking water. No one asking climate fund or relief. They're asking the water, drinking water. They're asking the embankment, coastal embankment for the next generation. But responsibility goes to women to collect the water. And since 2009, I am following regularly the newspaper, and we saw that Bangladesh delegation joining climate conference, but outcome is zero since 2009. So global leaders, they betray with us. Our delegation, they back to our country without any financial commitment. So this frequent news hit me that I should, ask climate justice. And after the Paris Convention or Paris Agreement in 2015, then I joined to YouthNet to mobilize grassroots young people. And by this time, how we can amplify the grassroots voice to the global conference as well as the negotiation room from the ground. Thank you. Over to Sumaya.
Thank you so much, Sohanur, for sharing your insightful stories. I do agree with you when some I am also from Bangladesh, and yeah, Nowadays, we blame it on our mobile phones and whatnot, but the root cause, we don't address those. We are facing floods every year, especially in Bangladesh. Last year also, the flood was devastating, and yeah, and the women are the worst sufferers of it. And as a public health student, I can say that this has to do a lot of with our health and mental health as well. Okay, I would like to move forward to the discussion, and I would like Layla to share what truly inspired her and at what moment she thought like storytelling could be a good a way of talking about climate justice.
Thank you, Sumaya, and thank you guys for this powerful journeys that you have started and where you are right now. So I don't know how many of you, I know Sohanur has seen a flood, a cyclone himself. I don't know how many from the audience have witnessed a flood themselves. But so I grew up in Gilgit-Baltistan, where we have glaciers all around, and these glaciers are like, our elders in our community. They are like ancient, they are steady, and they are the source of life. Their melt water is basically feeding our rivers, our crops, our animals, and ice is not just something that is a freezer for us. It's alive. And in summer 2010, the balance in the ecosystem just broke, and there was a sudden flash flood in my village. And I remember running to save my life, and my mother just running with her cattle, because for us, we value our life, but we also value our cattle. And I remember people shouting to find their loved ones. And when we finally reached to a higher ground, I stood next to my mother. We saw the muddy water roaring down from the stream and falling into the river and sweeping away anything that comes in front, homes, field, orchards, where I remember growing up playing in these fields. So climate change wasn't just a distant problem that we used to read about and discuss in classrooms. It was here, and it was ripping our lands, our memories, and our families. And that's what climate justice is. It's not about just the water rising, or the weather patterns changing, or the heat waves, but it's about the people, the ones who contributing the least, as Sohanur and as Harjeet mentioned, often suffer the most, while those who are most powerful are the one farthest from the floodwaters, and the actual climate change crisis. And climate justice means making sure, the solutions are fair, the voices of the frontline communities are heard, and that we protect both the people and the land that we live with, because our lives depend on it. For us, we coexist with the nature, and we cannot live in the mountains if there are no glacier. We cannot live there if there is no fields, because our whole system is a sustainable way of growing our own food. And there is, as Sohanu was saying, we have zero carbon footprint, or nearly zero carbon footprint. So for me, it's about the rights of people and the rights of ecosystems that we depend on. And well, that flood actually left a scar, but it also lit a fire. I still wake up sometimes with nightmares of floods. But my fight for climate justice, or to tell these stories, started back then, standing with the muddy feet, with my mother's hand in mine. So yeah, that was the incident that actually woke me up. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Layla, for sharing your story. I think whoever is in South Asia or Southeast Asia I mean we are facing the consequences the most, as all of you mentioned. And yeah, so moving forward, I would in this session I would like you guys to talk about the tactics and impact on or how do we can get results on climate justice. So Sohanur, I think you have, based on on our research, you were able to stop 10 coal power plants in Bangladesh, and you were able to create a pressure on the government. I would like to know how did you work on it, and can you share us the story behind it? And how
Yes,
can we get results like this in the future as well?
yeah. Thank you, Sumaya. And you rightly mentioned about our fight against coal and the narrative in South Asia or country like Bangladesh. That is the climate justice narrative, and our prime focus is adaptation. And our farmers, our local community, they are adapting before 200 years. Like my region in Borishal, our farmers, they are practicing floating farming before 200 years ago. No scientists, no donors, no NGOs taught them how to make the floating gardens. And now the school children in UK, they are learning that Bangladesh farming model or the rainwater harvesting in coastal Bangladesh. People invented how they can preserve rainwater in the traditional motka or traditional pot. No one taught them. So Bangladeshi narrative or South Asian narrative is that we are not responsible. Global North, wealthy countries, they are responsible. We are doing our part to adapt with climate change, and we are not emitting much. But South Asia also growing for the carbon emission. Our carbon emission is growing much rather than previous. So normally we are asking climate finance, justice, but Bangladesh, first time we started our grassroots campaign in 2017, but no one is carrying youth movement, youth voice, climate justice voice. But we got a effect. It's named Greta Thunberg effect. One school girl in Sweden, she started the global strike in March 2019, and she asked to the whole global youth to join her. And from Bangladesh, we also joined the Fridays for Future movement to expressing solidarity with Greta. But our viewpoint is Greta is not much climate vulnerable, but we are the witnessed or we are the frontliner of climate vulnerable because we faced cyclone, we faced flood, we are facing heat waves, we are facing salinity, all kind of climate disaster we are facing, we are dealing. But Stockholm children or Greta Thunberg is not facing this. So when we started that campaign, and this year that movement touched to the Bangladesh parliament, and that time we have a global figure. His name is Saber Choudhury, Harjeet known very well, Saber. So Saber take a motion in parliament to showing our movement photo in the parliament, and he convinced all bench, the treasury bench and opposition, to take a motion that is not the climate emergency, that the planetary emergency. It's a planetary emergency motion. And it's not only recognizing the climate, also biodiversity, nature, ecosystem, and planetary overshoot. That means Bangladesh will not take any kind of action against this kind of principle. So that's the good thing. So by 6 months, a youth movement or climate strike, Bangladesh Parliament took a resolution or motion. But irony is, by next year, Bangladesh planned new 20 coal-based power plant. So it's the contradictory. In one hand, in parliament, you are saying planetary emergency. In another hand, you are planning 10 coal-based new power plant. It can't be the just thing. And that time, COVID already started. Lockdown started. You can't move. You can't organize. you can't participate climate strike, only we have the virtual platform. And we found who is the real culprit for this. That's the bank, the regional bank, World Bank or the Asian Bank, especially ADB. They are financing on coal. So we started campaign against the financial mechanism or bank who are giving money to the Bangladesh government to continue new coal-based power plant. And through this campaign, bank they develop their own policy. They will not financing on coal. Then and especially the JICA. And one controversial project was, I think, Harjeet, no, Matarbari 2 in Cox's Bazar. And that was the very controversial, very, harming for nature, climate, everything. But it's financed by JICA. And another irony is JICA is giving money in the name of climate finance to support a coal-based power plant, and they're claiming it will be the less emission. It's very ironic thing. So what we did? We did a very innovative campaign that is a Pikachu movement. So Pikachu, I think you know someone, is very popular cartoon character to the young generation in Japan. So we imported some cartoon character from Japan, and our young children, they wear that Pikachu mascot, and they stood up in front of National Press Club with a placard, Japan, don't fund on our destruction. Japan, don't fund our coal-based power plant. But it was risky, but that time was a very autocratic government. And 7 days, police stayed the children's house, the nearby, but they did not jail any children. That's the good point. But that campaign was so powerful. That campaign connected the Japanese young people because the news went viral in Bangladeshi media and Twitter. Then Japanese Fridays for Future collab with us, and Japanese young people, they went the JICA office, they raid the JICA office, they organized a movement in front of JICA office, and they submitted a memorandum. And by this time, Japan government phased out that Matarbari coal-based power plant. And by 1 hour, Bangladesh also announced we are also moving from coal-based power plant to pledging, to honoring the climate commitment. But we made it to stopping that Matarbari coal-based power plant. And then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina de-announced 10 coal-based power plant in Glasgow COP. So that's the outcome of the climate movement. And then Bangladesh is more prioritizing the renewable energy. Sometimes they committed the 40% energy by 41. And obviously last uprising in 2024, it was a youth-led mass uprising, and youth climate movement also part of this. And my colleague Ishtiaq Ahmed Sravon, who got killed in Feni, to joining the civil protest. So we are also part of this youth-led revolution in Bangladesh. And last week, Professor Mohammad Yunus, our chief advisor, he also announced the July declaration intergenerational equity. And I think it's the outcome of the youth-led movement in Bangladesh. Over to you, Sumaya.
Thank you so much, Sohanur. Now I would like to go to Harjeet and I want to know, like, as you worked both with the local communities uh, as well as like big platforms like UN, how do you think we can uh, reach this like the community as well as uh, international organizations? How can we bridge this to create meaningful or impactful campaigns?
Yeah, thank you, Sumaya, for that question. I think it's really important to understand that we who work with communities and also are engaging with these global policy making spaces have a dual responsibility. On one hand, we need to make sure that when we are engaged in any policy discussions, we are carrying the stories of communities and showing the human face of the crisis. And we often find these negotiation rooms are very sterile and they don't connect with the reality outside those conference rooms. And that's why it is important to talk about how people are getting impacted. So if I talk about my journey of working on the issue of loss and damage, we always talked about how people, farmers or women and children, are being affected. And of course, despite using our way of that storytelling, which Lela was mentioning, which is so important, but that should not replace the space that we need to create for communities themselves to represent their groups and talk about the challenges that they are facing. So when we go, we do that in best of our ability and intention to communicate those concerns, to play the role of a translator or a conduit. At the same time, when we come back to communities, we also talk about what's happening in the global space, who is responsible for the crisis and why they are suffering, and how we need to make sure that the change that needs to happen on ground has to be influenced by the policies that need to be crafted, and vice versa, how communities need to influence those policies. And also simplifying the complex language of the UN system and the lingo, which is very intimidating at times for communities. So how we connect, as I said, it's a dual responsibility and it's also a two-way street. So first and foremost, we should create those platforms, which we have been successful to some extent, but making sure that communities get a chance to talk about it, and wherever they are unable to, we represent their issues and make sure that policies are influenced based on what is needed on the ground, and not uh, decided in the boardrooms for people who are being affected.
Thank you, Harjeet. Over to Layla. I want to know that, as we know that media can often oversimplify or dramatize climate change. So how do you balance urgency, accuracy, and hope in your storytelling, especially on issues that are a bit politically sensitive or complex when it comes to climate justice?
Yeah, so adding on to Sohanun and Harjeet, I just want to show a short trailer and then I can talk about it, because we are talking about stories, and now we are talking about, indigenous solutions from the local communities. So I would want us to watch a 2 minutes trailer, and it will, somehow, I hopefully make the intense conversation a bit, bring some entertainment to it as well. Can we share the trailer?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I am hoping. Zarek, I think you are taking care of it in the back end. So a little bit about this story. So it's about an indigenous community from Gilgit-Baltistan. They have this beautiful tradition of glacier making. Uh, they have been practicing it for centuries. So basically, they join male and female glacier and have a ceremonial wedding of the male and female glacier. They bury it on a mountain on above a village that has water scarcity, and then it grows up to be this permanent solution for water scarcity. So I want you guys to watch this and then we can have a conversation.
ये हम दो ही लोगों ने सीखा ये काम 20 साल पहले लगाया था वो इतना कामयाब हो गया है कि छोटी सी मेरी मेहनत इतना बड़े मेरे गांव को फायदा हो रहा है
काफ़ी जगहों में पला है अब ये शायर रजा है उनका माहिर कौन था दादा गुलाम रसूल फी सबिलिल्लाह खिदमत करता था आज उसका नाम भी रोशन है
In local Balti tradition and culture, everything has a pair. Our culture say that as water is life giver, So how the life giver itself could be lifeless?
अभी ज़्यादा हो गया ना पहले के निस्बत जो ग्लेशियर बनाए ना अब ये हमारे इस नाले में 3 खुबानी था 3 दरख्त अभी 3 लाख से ऊपर होगा.
As indigenous community, we don't want to let go of what we have, as it holds hope of survival in the face of climate change. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So this beautiful community in Gilgit-Baltistan in Himalayan regions have this beautiful tradition, and we are currently uh, making a feature documentary about it. And we are also, since it's a tradition, so one of the struggles that the community faces is a lot of the institutions consider it a myth or a folklore because it takes so many years to actually see the results. So the glacier marriage, like after 5 years, it starts giving water to the community, but for 14 years it takes roots under the mountain, and after that you will gradually see it coming up. So we are, because of this hesitation towards this increasingly vital solution, we are also doing our very first scientific study on this, and this documentary will be a research-based, documentary film. So, Sumaya, to your question, balancing urgency and accuracy and hope is one of the biggest challenges, especially in climate storytelling. And you want people to understand the seriousness in the crisis, but you don't want to create despair and oversimplify the complex issues. So for me, it's the key is to ground these stories in real human experience. In my documentaries about glacier marriage and in Gilgit-Baltistan, I focus on the people who practice this centuries-old technique, their struggles, their resilience, and also their fears in the face of climate change, and their deep connection to these glaciers and the ecosystems around them, while showing, the changing climate and the changing glacier effects on the access to water, agriculture, and especially mental health. Makes this issue very immediate and relatable, while also staying true to the science aspect of it as well. So it's important to highlight the solution along with the urgency and also the agency, even small ones. So this story, I see it as a spark of hope. When we talk about climate change, it's a lot of hopelessness around it, but I know there are thousands of stories in local indigenous communities. If we bring them to the world, it will be a spark of hope, and people and the policymakers need to. I strongly believe that the scientific community, the people who are coming up with these solutions, need to go back to the roots, to the people who are living with the nature, to understand what can be done, because their experience, their observation, their experiment has been way long than what science can immediately do. And the solutions that science or the policymakers in boardrooms might come up would not be sustainable, and they with the in the trial error we might further harm the climate. So finally, contexting everything, the climate changes, is deeply political in many regions, and glacier marriage sites are the intersection of science, tradition, and policy. So I am really hoping, if we verify, if science is able to verify this, and if we uh, bring this story out to the world, there it will hopefully inspire policymakers to consider these indigenous people, to bring them on the table of the discussion, and also for us to go back to our roots and understand our practices and promote the very environmental friendly, sustainable practices that we have. And also I hope this will inspire communities in similar regions in Nepal or in the Alps or in Afghanistan to consider this as a mitigation solution for their water crisis. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Layla, for showing us your work. It's really amazing and it's truly inspiring. Due to the time constraint, we will have to move forward with our third portion of our panel discussion, where we will discuss the future. Where does we stand and what to do to get more impactful results. So from Harjeet, I would like to know what are the biggest challenges right now in achieving a just energy transition in South Asia, and what we could do in the future to have a better future for us in South Asia.
Sure, Sumaya. When we talk about South Asia as a region, challenges are immense, and especially if we talk about the just energy transition, we are looking at a huge scale, which also means that the cost of the transition is going to be massive. We have a very large population in South Asia. We need to power our economies, lift people out of poverty. There are still many people, and when I say poverty, access to basic services, including electricity, and which would require a massive amount of new energy infrastructure. And how we develop is also going to be a question whether it is equitable and just. So the capital that is required for renewable energy transition is enormous. And the biggest challenge is that international community has not delivered its promise of providing climate finance, which means that majority of the funding that is going for energy transition is largely domestic. When I can speak of India, which has made a huge transition and made commitment to go for non-fossil fuel sources to the extent of 50% by 2030, and it's actually very close to that. More than 80% of green finance in India is domestic. So imagine a large country which is making a transition and has that kind of enabling environment is on its own. So countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh are not different. They are also powering their own transition. And the reason we don't have sufficient finance, it's slow. So what we need to be doing when we talk about just energy transition, we need to invest in retraining and creating new green jobs, and that is a massive political and economic challenge. At the same time, we need to make sure that the energy security and sovereignty that we need to ensure is much more sustainable, and that would require skill building in our own country and not being dependent on sources outside the country. So I would say finance, technology remain huge barriers for transition, and we need to do that alongside taking people out of poverty. And if we do not provide sufficient finance and in a timely manner, many governments and countries are going to fall back on the same dirty way of development using fossil fuels, which means we will actually be exacerbating the very crisis that we need to deal with, and which is only getting worse, and we will be actually playing a role in contributing to that. So I would say we have a huge potential as well, but international community has to step up and provides a lot of resources to help us make that transition.
Thank you for your valuable insights. Now over to Sohanur. So I would like to know, since you are the coordinator for YouthNet, I want to know like how can movements like YouthNet collaborate across South Asia for a shared impact on climate justice?
Yes, thank you, Sumaya. So awareness is increasing. Participation or participant of COP is increasing. Webinar, articles, events, all are increasing, but we are not in right track to limiting the 1.5. So, and if we believe on science, and no one is caring the science and scientists as well as who are the activists. And people think we activists, we are the alarmists, we are the radical. But true radical are the fossil fuel companies. They are doing business with climate. They are doing business with environment. They are doing business with disaster. And in South, global South, in South Asia, our people, they are the silent financer. And they are costing their lives, their livelihoods, their dreams, their father graveyards. So Harjeet is advocating, and it's also win, and it's a example how the South Asia can build partnership. Like if I can remember in COP27, so aftermath of Pakistan flood, Pakistan was in leading position led by Sherry Rahman to establish the loss and damage fund. And that time, Bangladesh and Pakistan has a huge, political tension, who is right now with India. But Sherry Rahman and Sabir Chowdhury work together because loss and damage bond us. And our late Professor Salimul Haq or activist Harjeet Singh, we all are play our part to establish the loss and damage fund. So that example we have how the global South or especially South Asia can build partnership to win global justice. And recent outcome of the the advisory opinion that comes from the Pacific young people, but we also express our solidarity. But for the geopolitical issue, our South Asia is a very fragmented in different difference. But in Southeast Asia, they are working together. Africa, they are working together, but we are not sometimes aligned, India, Pakistan. But if we want to tackle climate crisis, we must need regional cooperation because we are in control by the Himalaya Everest. So Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka, we need much regional cooperation, even mangrove forest. So 60% mangrove in Bangladesh and rest of in India. So we can't alone to manage our mangrove forest. So we need much regional cooperation. And nowadays we are trying to build more peoples to peoples connection and especially youth to youth connection in the South Asian countries. And who are the climate justice advocate, we should be hopeful, but sometimes we can't be much hopeful because it's creating more anxiety, more tension when we are seeing the global political change from US to Europe. And global community, they are not paying our justice with the finance, they're pushing loan, they're pushing another injustice. But we should solve this crisis in our lifetime, otherwise we will be the last generation. So that's the message from myself. Thank you. Over to Sumaya.
Yeah, totally agree. We need to come up with solution, otherwise we would be the last generation. So over to Layla. So from your perspective of storytelling, if you want to give one advice to the young filmmakers, what advice would you give to work on climate change justice if they want to work on it through storytelling?
Okay, so I would say, to start with empathy and observation, to go to these communities who are affected most and listen deeply and understand the context before you pick up the camera or, paint your brush, be it any artist, not just filmmaker. So we need to understand their stories, what they are going through, what makes these humans, making these stories human centric, not just statistics, collaborating on the local voices and respecting the tradition and focusing on solution as much as possible because we know there is a lot of problem. There is, a lot of as Sohanur was saying, it's scary. Sometimes I get so hopeless. I feel like is anything what I'm doing is worth it, because at the end we are just maybe, in a couple of years we all will be underwater. But we need to also show hope. So, we are not just showing that, everything is going to destroy, but showing them hope will inspire more spark. And we filmmakers or artists shouldn't be afraid to experiment with different forms, and film and photography or music or digital art can all make climate justice resonate in ways that scientific paper alone could never. So our creativity is our superpower, so we have to use it to move people, spark the conversation, and inspire action. And along with these amazing people who are fighting on the ground, mobilizing and going to the boardrooms and making sure that our voices are heard, we need to bring these stories to the mass people and make them aware of what is happening, to tell them these stories of tell the stories of human faces of climate change, and hopefully inspire positive action. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you, Layla. So we are almost towards the end of our session, and I would like all of you to give at least like a one sentence from each of you, like what gives you hope in this work, or in this work for climate justice. Just one sentence from all of three of you. Then we can go ahead and take questions from the audience.
Okay, I can start. For me, the unwavering resilience that we see and the hope that we see every day in the eyes of people who we work with, communities who are facing climate impacts, who are on the front lines, yet they show that resilience, that grit, and who are still hopeful and continuing to fight for that future, despite having contributed least to the problem, and the system, that is the community-based system that are working with them, to keeping them hopeful and supporting them in all the doom and gloom scenario is what gives me hope and what inspires me to go back to the communities and work with them and to fight at the global level, keeping their faces and their challenges and their hope in mind.
Yes, I want to add with Harjeet, and I think we are in the same pace. And that's the thing. When we join the Global Climate Conference, global leaders, they're saying we're in the same boat, but we are not in the same boat. They're in a ship, we are in a sinking boat, or the small boat. So I believe in the people's power. I believe in the community power. And climate is a scientific thing, but we are making it more, the technical or jargon thing. And we are not make that room or the discussion is a people's friendly. So like in Dhaka, we are organizing climate event with the posh English, but the people is not in center who are the most affected. So we need that extra arrangement. So I believe in people's power. So how we can shifting the power to the grassroots, how we can amplify their voice, how we can capture the local knowledge. And global community's responsibility is supporting them to solve this crisis, address this loss and damage. And energy transition is essential, but that should be equitable. Thank you. Over to Leila.
Thank you, Sohanur, and I echo both of you. And I know people who are in the forefront are very resilient. I just want to mention one incident 2, 3 days back. Seven of the volunteers who were trying to, fix the water channel that was destroyed in Glacier Lake outburst, they lost their life to a mudslide. And it's they were all young and from the same community. And I saw his daughter's video, and she was like, I'm proud of my father who went to make sure that we have access to water, and he passed away. He's a martyr, and we will always remember him in our prayers, and he will always be alive. So these people, these communities who are doing so many things on their own, when the government and the global north is just doesn't not it doesn't care basically for our survival, but we are committed that we will face this, and we will hopefully reconnect to the nature that has survived, was is the reason for our survival. And for me, the one sentence would be, it's very important we go back to our roots, we go back to our indigenous communities, learn from them, get inspiration from them, and they have the key to our survival.
Thank you, Layla. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. I think we are towards the end now. We will take questions from our audience. I think there is already one question. Qasim raised his hand. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the questions?
Hello guys, thank you so much. It was like very enlightening to listen to all of you guys, and I would like to thank all of you. My question is for Harjeet because when I signed in, there was this discussion going on where Layla was asking Harjeet about this situation in Punjab. So I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I myself come from Punjab, and there's this one thing that I see, like Layla comes from a mountain community, Sohanur is from like coastal communities. They guys are those people are like very aware of climate change because they keep on facing climate induced disasters, and they're like Punjab is like very much in inland, and they're the shift they see are regarding to weather patterns. I have sat down with the ancestors, the elders, and they're like very aware how not to mistreat their land, how to be conscious of the ecosystem around them. But as this panel is on the youth, so what I see with the Punjab youth, and I'm sure it would be on the both sides of the border, is that they're like very ignorant and they're driven by this greed, like where they're amusing themselves to death, where they all want these flashy things. Like even you go back to my village, like 10 years back, they did not have even electricity. Now they're blasting ACs 24/7. So I just want to know that how do you, when you go to those areas or when you go to those places, like how do you see that and how do you think that this should be countered? Because we are not able to get their attention. So how do we fight for their attention and how do we address this ignorance that's like prevailing in that part of the world?
Are we taking a few questions or do you want me to respond? There's also one on the chat.
You can answer the chat question as well, and then you can go answer Qasim's question.
So let me go back to the previous question let me read. It talks about so-called solutions and how it is being pushed through. I'll put it this way. So some of us have been working on this and defining these as false solutions or dangerous distractions, particularly when we talk about carbon markets and offsetting. First of all, they normally rely on commodification of nature, and what they essentially want is a license to pollute. Everything else is a packaging. So if carbon markets were something real, they would have worked by now. And the fact is that every time they bring it up, they fail. So look at where we are. Markets have existed. Rather, markets that are focused entirely on profits have made it worse. We are now living in a 1.6-degree warmer world compared to pre-industrial era. Your other point on blanket expansion of renewable energy, anything that we do blanket is not going to work. There's no one size fit all solution. We have to make sure that we are talking to communities and understanding their needs and ultimately looking at who benefits from any so-called solution. And on renewable energy, we always said it has to be community owned, decentralized renewable energy systems. And it will be such a such a shame and missed opportunity that as we move from fossil fuels to renewable energy, where the sources are far more decentralized, we're talking about sun, we're talking about wind, than fossil fuel sources, yet we are not decentralizing the movement itself, where people can benefit from it, they can control it, they can turn it into a livelihood option, not only as consumers but also as producers. So we need to talk about energy democracy, and not now replacing fossil fuels with large scale renewable energy plants. That's not going to work. On geoengineering, again, I'll connect to the earlier point. These are all false solutions. There are unproven technologies. It's basically getting a license to pollute, and the risks are colossal and unknown. So we cannot risk. When we know, the answer is simple. We have to reduce our consumption, particularly in the West, and make sure that we are moving to renewable energy, and in a much more sustainable manner. And again, renewable energy also has its own cost. That's why we need to look at sustainable consumption and production. So, and even the model of conservation, as you were also mentioning, it cannot be the same colonial model. We cannot look at people versus nature. People are part of nature, and people have protected nature, particularly indigenous communities and forest dwelling communities. How do we develop our definition of conservation, which puts people and ecology at the center, is what we need to be looking at. I don't know if there was anything else that you want me to cover. On the other point, it's not just limited to Punjab. The reality is that, and in so first of all, we need to understand the development model itself, which has been promoted by the West, which is all about consumption, which is all about luxury, and showing how, the parameters of quality of life are very different and are very anti-nature. Those have been promoted in media, and our developing countries and so-called emerging economies have blindly followed that. In fact, today I was writing a piece which is going to be published as we celebrate our Independence Day in the next 2 days, questioning the model itself. Are we less extractive than our so-called colonial masters? So it's the model we should challenge. I mean, young people are being lured, and there's a whole system that is working. The way corporations are pushing these products using media and advertising, the way they are hiding the environmental impacts, and of course, our governments are failing to regulate and talk about the impact of such market-based economy on nature. So there's a failing on several counts. I would not just question youth. They are a subject in the whole game of consumerism, and we need to question the system. Of course, as individuals who now have access to information, we cannot say they do not have a responsibility. They also have to make themselves aware, understand their consumption patterns, and move away from things that are unsustainable. That's so, if I talk about my organization, and it's in Hindi, and if it's not understandable for many, it says Satat Sampada. Satat means sustainable, and Sampada is natural resources. That's how we started. The nature, the natural systems have to be sustainable. That should be our core objective.
I want to add with Harjeet ji, and we are in the same advocating same thing. And we climate justice activists, we are not against the business. And though climate justice or climate issue is not only environmental or development issue, it's economic issue. So we all obviously need the economic solution, but that economic justice also very important thing. So in Bangladesh, but autonomy is very important. Like our energy master plan is developed by Japan. Why? So our energy master plan should be developed by our people, but we can't develop our energy plan in our own. So that's the problem. And Japan proposed some this kind of solution, hydrocarbon or blue carbon or the carbon capture. It's never unproven in Bangladesh. So that's why we believe it's a false solution. And people are very excited about carbon market. But I saw the news in Guardian that through the carbon market project, the Maasai community in Kenya, their houses are burning. So next time that burn will be in my indigenous community, Bangladesh, for some money for carbon market. So we can't give the license to the carbon market or this kind of mechanism to burning the indigenous people house. So that's why we are not supporting much in this kind of mechanism, who is promoting the profit but not the people's dignity. And when we are talking about the colonization, the solution is localization, and that's the local action, locally led development, locally led adaptation that will connect the loss and damage issues, connect the just transition issues. But still, we are in different silos, different plans. But all the development narrative should be integrated. And obviously, it's not only people, also nature. But now in Bangladesh, we're facing conflict between people and nature. Like in coastal Bangladesh, conflict between human and tiger, conflict between human and elephant, and some environmental degradation in Bangladesh. Now the question is, our food is first or nature is first? But we need the solution. Food and nature should be both are together. And people think to promote to protecting nature in South Asia or Bangladesh, we are getting more poor, but we will be more poor if we can't save the natural resources. So that understanding or that question we should meet. Yeah. Thank you. Over to moderator.
Thank you. Leila, do you want to add anything to that, or do we have any more questions? If you guys any questions from the audience, please go ahead and write it down or unmute yourself.
No, both Sohanur and Harjeet beautifully answered the question, so I do not have anything to add to that.
Okay, I would like to wait for 1 minute, maybe, if you have any questions. Guys, you can also unmute yourself and ask your question. All right, I think we can wrap it up. I would like to thank all of you for joining us. I know 3 of you are really busy with your own work and you guys are doing an amazing job. And we are also from Reality Beyond Dreams, we are also are having new few webinars coming up. I hope if you guys are interested, I mean, for the audience, you guys can come and join us. Then I would like all of you to follow us or follow our platforms to know more about those webinars. For example, I can talk a little bit about the next webinar we are having. It's on climate as well. It's on the localized effect of climate change, where we will bring you stories that we don't see in global narrative of climate change. So whoever are interested, I would like you guys to follow our social media so that you guys are well aware of the upcoming webinars. And yeah, I think the links are already there on the chat. You guys, you can go ahead and check it out. Yeah, the links are already there. Okay. Thank you, Zarak, for sharing. Okay, I think we can wrap it up. If you guys have any closing remark, you can go ahead and then we can probably end the meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Sohanur and Harjeet. Your insights, your work, it's an inspiration. And thank you, Sumaya, for the moderation and coming up and inviting these guests and you and your team. These are brilliant young women from Asian University of Bangladesh, Asian University for Women, Bangladesh. They're doing an incredible work, and they are currently on a internship program we are having with them, and they are doing an incredible job in bringing the stories of resilience from around the world. And yeah, thank you so much. And we should stay in touch and see how we can support you guys in your journeys. Hope we stay in touch and collaborate on different projects, or bringing
Yes,
the actual.
yes, thank you, Leila. And the we know the fossil fuel investment is increasing, global temperature is increasing, and it's not only metrics or the temperature; it's also the existing inequality to the different marginalized group. So I think the social capital is very important, and and all time we are talking about the adaptation gap, finance gap. But I think trust gap between global south and north, trust gap between Bangladesh to Pakistan or India. So how we can bridge that trust gap, and then I think we can solve this crisis truly. So I am very hopeful to collaborate to showing solidarity and co-create something that will be equitable and just for our people. So I'm very hopeful, and not for this generation, for the upcoming generation. So it's our uh, moral responsibility, and now also it's a legal responsibility after the advisory opinion. And I want to pass my comrade Harjeet Singh. Harjeet.
I think we've already said it. What we need to do is let's not lose hope, despite the doom and gloom scenario. We need to draw inspiration from the community, and also shoulder the responsibility of working with them and taking their issues to various levels, and fight for climate justice, and fight it really hard. It's going to take time, and take care of yourself, because we need you, all of you, for this fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining in. We had a very insightful webinar. Hope to see you guys again. Goodbye.
Thank you.